Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. And we're going to continue our discussion with talking about climate-controlled storage, off-site storage, safely displaying, storing, maintaining, and insuring a collection or a valuable collection of antiques, collectibles, whatever item you happen to collect. And again, I want to be very clear. It doesn't matter if we're on the high-end side of the antique equation, where people are collecting high-end works of art, rare coins, rare pieces of currency, historical documents, traditional antiques, or if we're on the pop culture side of the equation, where people are collecting Pokemon cards, comic books, Magic the Gathering game cards, antique toys, action figures, items of that nature. So if you collect something of value, this video or this video series that I am doing on this topic should appeal and have some interest to you. Now, like I said in the video that I did on off-site climate-controlled storage, there are predominantly 4 different ways that most people, most collectors, choose to store their valuable collections of antiques, collectibles, and other artifacts. Those 4 ways are in their own primary residence or a secondary house or building that they own, through off-site climate-controlled storage, or if they're extremely wealthy, they're going to go through high-end vault storage. That's your Robo Vaults down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, or Crozier Fine Arts, which is owned by Iron Mountain out of New York, New York. They cater to the high-end art market. So a lot of people that own paintings that are worth $5, $10, $15, $20, $50 million, they're going to go through a company like Crozier Fine Arts, or they're going to go through Robo Vault down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Either one of those 2 companies. Now, the 4th and final way that most people choose to store valuable antiques and collectibles, if they are small enough, is through a bank safe deposit box. Now, we have to talk about this because there's a lot of incorrect information about bank safety deposit boxes. I'm going to give you both the pros and the cons. And before we get to that, full disclosure, I use multiple bank safety deposit boxes for my own collections. I do not hold any rare coins, any Rolex watches, any rare pieces of rare graded currency, collectible paper money, any historical documents, even first edition collectible books, or even graded Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering cards. All of those items are not kept in any building that I own. They're actually kept in safety deposit boxes at banks. So I use this method myself, guys. So when I give you both the cons and the pros, it comes from my own personal experience. I do partake in a lot of these activities, meaning the video that I talked about, renting a climate-controlled off-site storage unit, I also rent one of those. So I know how this game is played. So I'm giving you first-hand examples as to what to look for if you are going to go this route. Now, in my opinion, if you collect anything small, valuable, that is either made of a precious metal, that is jewelry related, that is sports card, non-sports card, so Pokemon collectors, Magic the Gathering collectors, if you guys collect anything like that that has a lot of value, you're probably going to want to seek out a safety deposit box. Safety deposit boxes are extremely affordable. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but there are cons you must understand if you're going to go this route. So I'm going to give you the cons first, then I'm going to talk about the pros. And I'm doing this in reverse for a reason, guys, so just bear with me. The first con of a safety deposit box, you got to know they are not FDIC insured. Now, if you don't know what FDIC insurance is, it stands for Federal Depositors Insurance Corporation, which was enacted in the early 1930s by my favorite president, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Yes, FDR created the FDIC. And you got to remember, guys, if we go back to the 1930s, the Great Depression happened in the year 1929. So this was right after the Great Depression. People were worried of banks because a lot of banks failed during the Great Depression, and there was a run on the banks and people couldn't get their money. That was one of the things that caused the Great Depression. Liquidity dried up. We almost had that same thing happen in 2008, 2009. That's why, even though you guys know my political views, I'm on the left, But even though a lot of people criticize bailing out the banks, it had to be done because liquidity would have dried up. As much as I hate to say that, it had to be done in 2008, 2009. So what does this have to do with the FDIC? Well, the FDIC was established to prevent if a bank fails, the depositors in that bank are insured by the federal government up to $250,000 per bank per account holder. So if I, Sean Cermak, have $250,000 at Wells Fargo and I have another $250,000 at Citizens Bank, I'm insured at both those banks. So if both those banks in the unlikely event would fail, the government would cut me a check of $500,000. $250,000 from Wells Fargo, $250,000 from Citizens Bank. Now, full disclosure, and again, this hits on finance, I do not think anybody in this day and age, especially with the value of the stock market and investing in the stock market, should have $250,000 at an individual bank in either CDs, money market accounts, savings accounts, or the like that are paying such low interest rates, especially as we enter the year 2021. Full disclosure, but that's not the topic of this video. So getting back on course, the thing that most people don't realize is a safety deposit box is not FDIC insured. Let me state that again. I don't care what bank you go to in the United States of America. A safe deposit box is not FDIC insured, meaning if you're stupid enough to put cash in a safety deposit box or you put other valuables, other items in there, and that bank does close, guess what? You will eventually get the contents of that box out, but it's going to take some time. There's going to be some legwork you're going to have to go through in the interim. So if you are thinking of renting a safe deposit box, do it at a financially solvent institution. Don't do it at Joe Schmo's Main Street Bank. Try to find a major bank to rent from or a credit union. Credit unions are usually very financially solvent. I will say that. I know some events going to probably happen in the financial industry that's going to cause me to eat those words, but big banks, credit unions, they appear to be financially solvent in most cases. So that's my first piece of advice. Next, you need to understand that when you open up a safety deposit box at a bank, they're going to present you with a contract. Most of these contracts are going to limit their liability if your contents go lost or missing. Most banks limit their liability at $500. I've seen some banks limited at $1. I've seen other banks limited at $50. So you really have to read the contract that that bank is presenting you with. Now, in most cases, almost all banks use a variation of the same contract. The reason for this is, and this gets to another con on this list, all modern banks and credit unions use the same cookie cutter designs for their safety deposit boxes and bank vaults. This is both good and bad. If you watched my video on off-site climate-controlled storage units, when they construct an off-site climate-controlled storage unit, pretty much company to company, they use the same cookie-cutter design. It's no different with a bank. Now, there are exceptions here. If you are lucky enough to live in a historic town or a city, you may be able to find a bank that actually was constructed in 1902 or 1932, and the bank is made of solid concrete block. And as a result, their vault rooms are constructed a little different than your average cookie cutter franchise Bank of America, Wells Fargo Bank that occupies Main Street, USA. So that is an exception to the rule. In my opinion, if you are lucky enough to be near a bank that was built back in several decades ago or 100 years ago, go with that bank. Those bank vaults are built a lot better than modern era designs. So let me repeat myself on that. If you are lucky enough to live and bank at a location where the bank was built like 100 years ago, or even back in the 1950s, even the 1940s, the design of that bank room and that bank vault, in my opinion, is better suited for paper products, antiques, collectibles, and the like than a modern era bank. Now, why is that? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Another problem that you're going to have if you rent from a safety deposit box at a bank, you need to understand that it can only be accessed when the bank was open. I normally would not list this as a con, but with what happened with COVID, I was actually locked out of all my safety deposit boxes for literally almost 60 some days. So I could not get into my safety deposit boxes where my Rolex was stored, my rare coins, my rare pieces of currency. I had Pokemon, Magic the Gathering graded cards sitting in safety deposit boxes that I could not get to. Now, I was not upset because I knew eventually those banks would reopen, and obviously I could get into my safety deposit box and get what I need. But overall, a lot of you out there do not like the idea that if you rent a safety deposit box, you give up a certain amount of control for the items that you own. I understand that. A lot of people in this day and age have OCD. I get it, my brothers and sisters. But that is something you have to get past if you are going to store some of these valuable items in a safety deposit box. Now, this leads me to another point. Banks and governments can get access to safety deposit boxes and contents, and mistakes can and do occur with very little liability to the bank itself and the government in question. Now, in the United States, it doesn't happen as often as people claim it does. There are rumors out there. You can go on conspiracy-laden websites. You can also hear reports from lawyers that experienced it firsthand where they had a client and that client collected something of high value or had a very rare, expensive jewelry collection in a safety deposit box. And due to a mix-up at the bank, the contents were emptied and liquidated many, many years before. Now, if you are a person who is going to rent out a safety deposit box, my advice to you is to open up an account at that particular bank. So if you're going to have a safety deposit box, one of the things you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make yourself known to the people who work in that bank. The easiest way to do that is to have a checking account or a savings account or something that requires you to at least do business at that bank, even if you're not going into your safety deposit box. This will build rapport. The people will know you. So guess what? If they do attempt to make a mistake where maybe they're sealing off the safety deposit box that's next to you, you're renting the contents in this one, they'll go, oh, I know that's Sean's box. Yeah, he's okay. We can't seal that one off. Whoa, glad we caught this error. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes errors happen because people put stuff in a safety deposit box and they have no other business with the bank. And as long as they pay that yearly bill every 12 months, the bank says, oh, okay, we're still going to keep this open. Well, what could happen is at some point, if you don't stop in frequently to check the contents of your safety deposit box or have other business in that bank, they're going to forget you exist. If they forget you exist, that could cause a problem with the fact that you have valuables sitting in a safety deposit box. Again, it doesn't happen as often as people claim, but it can happen, and when it does, it can be catastrophic because most people who have safety deposit boxes, you're storing valuable items or paperwork in those boxes that you don't want destroyed, liquidated, or obviously stolen. Now, the final thing I want to talk about on the con side of the equation for safety deposit boxes is that humidity and temperature fluctuations occur in most bank vaults, and this applies to safety deposit boxes. Safety deposit boxes are not the safe haven that a lot of people think they are. If you're going to rent a safety deposit box, you must understand that the humidity and the temperature inside that bank vault and inside your safety deposit box is going to fluctuate regularly. What do I mean by that? Well, there's ways that you can protect yourself. First, if you're storing any type of valuable coins, any type of valuable currency, even graded Pokemon cards, you want to at least put those particular items in a plastic bag and wrap the items before putting it in the bank vault. You also want to add either a Desiccant or a silica gel to that bank vault safety deposit box to soak up any excess moisture. That silica gel, or as it's called in the trade, a desiccant, is going to need to be swapped out every 3 to 6 months. So every 3 to 6 months, you're going into your safety deposit box regardless, because you got to change your silica gel canister that you have in there to soak up any excess moisture. It also pays to put some type of temperature gauge in that safety deposit box that is battery operated. And usually you can get these at Walmart. You can get them at Target for under $10. What'll happen is they will store the high and low temperatures as it fluctuates through your box. So you'll be able to see what the low temperature setting is and what the high temperature setting of that particular bank vault is, just by having this gauge in your safety deposit box. Now, here's where it gets a little convoluted. Most people don't realize this. On the weekends, most banks are only open, if they're open at all, on a Saturday anymore. They're open usually from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. Well, 12 noon on a Saturday, when they shut down that bank vault, usually what happens is a lot of banks, not all, this is going to be different depending on what bank you go to, but most of your franchise-based banks, your Bank of America, your Wells Fargo, they're going to shut down the temperature control to that bank vault, meaning the temperature is going to drop over that particular time frame. Then on Monday, when they all come into work and they turn on the lights, they turn on the temperature controls to that bank vault. Now, again, there are exceptions to every rule. I'm just telling you, overall, understand, for large periods of time, the temperature and the humidity controls are going to be turned off from that bank vault. That's why you have to use silica gel and some type of temperature thermometer gauge to note what the actual temperature is in that safety deposit box at all times. Now, again, I just listed 5 reasons why safety deposit boxes are inherently risky. But I'm going to give you some pros to even out some of these cons. And full disclosure, I got to repeat this. I do hold multiple safety deposit boxes. I can tell you firsthand, I've never had a problem. I've been collecting high-end collectibles, luxury items, since literally the age of 18. I am now 44, pretty much today. And as a result, guess what, guys? I've never had an issue. So 20-some years, never had an issue. I don't anticipate having issues in the future either. So let me give you the pros as to why I recommend a safety deposit box. First, let me give you an excellent reason. They are extremely affordable. Even a medium to a larger size safety deposit box, even at a well-established bank, it's going to cost you probably less than $120 per year. Let me say that again. $120 per year, not month, $120 per year. That type of box with that type of protection at that rate, it's peanuts, guys. Let's be honest. That's several dollars a month. That's like less than $10 a month on average. If you can't afford $10 a month to rent a safety deposit box, honestly, you really have to analyze, should you own those valuables that you would be putting into that safety deposit box? This is unlike climate-controlled self-storage, where literally, I told you in that video, average rates start at $120 per month for climate-controlled self-storage. Safety deposit box, $120 a year on average. You can't beat that. Another thing you're getting when you rent a safety deposit box is you're obviously getting better protection and better security against theft, natural disasters, and fires. Remember, guys, going back to one of the tips that I already gave you in this video, the reason why I tell you to wrap your valuables in a plastic bag, a sealable plastic bag, before putting them in a safety deposit box is bank vaults and rooms where safety deposit boxes are held are fireproof. They also have sprinkler systems. So if a fire would start in the bank or in that room, in that particular building, the sprinkler system would be activated. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to try to waterproof these items before putting them into your safety deposit box, because in the event there is a fire, guess what? The vault room, those vaults are fireproof, but they're still going to run the sprinkler system, meaning it's going to get wet. As a result, you want to make sure that your items are well protected from any type of moisture, any type of water damage that could occur should that event occur. So that's very important. Now, another thing that I will tell you is many collectible-based insurance policies require you to keep rare coins, expensive collectibles, Rolex watches, luxury watches, and the like in safety deposit boxes if they're going to insure those particular valuables. So I can tell you this firsthand. I have multiple insurance policies out on my collections. I have an insurance policy out on my Rolex watch. I have insurance policies out on my rare currency collection, my rare coin collection. All of the companies that I do business with from an insurance standpoint, they require me to keep those collections in safety deposit boxes. Meaning, if I would keep them in fireproof vaults in my house, they would not offer me the same level of protection. I would be taking a risk in that regard. More on that in an upcoming video, and every insurance company is almost different on that. Some will tell you you have to store some of these collections in bank vaults, meaning safety deposit boxes. Other companies will offer limited protection if you choose to store these items in your house. In my opinion, it is never wise to hold small, valuable items in your house unless if they are on display or it's something impractical that most thieves would bypass during a robbery. When we start talking about Rolex watches, rare coins, rare banknotes, even collectible first edition books, even graded Pokemon cards, sports cards, Magic the Gathering cards, thieves know that those items have value. So you are better off storing them in safety deposit boxes, in my opinion. This is what I advise all my clients. Another thing that I want to bring up here, and I already alluded to this, safety deposit boxes are much safer than any kind of home safe, regardless of the kind of home safe you choose. Now, if you're somebody out there that has a net worth of $5 million, $10 million, it is very probable that in your house, you probably have the ability to construct what is known as a vault room. I'm actually going to do another video on this, and this is going to coincide with a video on fireproof, burglar-proof safes, and the like. But there are people out there who are extremely wealthy. I'm talking people who have 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 million net worths. And in their house, because they are drawn to collecting valuables, or maybe they're in that business, for instance, a rare coin dealer or a jeweler or a Rolex watch dealer, some of these guys do construct vault rooms in their house. I would love to have a vault room in my house eventually. Right now, it is out of my budget. I'm going to be 100% honest. I cannot spend $50,000 or $100,000 on a vault room right now. I would love to, though. Believe me. And if I ever build a house, like if I would get married and I would build a custom home, 100% honesty here, guys, I would have a vault room constructed in that house, believe it or not. Whether my wife wants it or not, she's getting a vault room. I'm just putting that out there. I would love to have that luxury in my house. At present time, I just don't have the means for it, especially living in wonderful Boyertown, Pennsylvania at present time. It's really not practical. But if I would ever get to that point, I would definitely want a vault room. So there are a lot of wealthy people that are going that route who have extremely tremendous net worths. There are some people that have reached out to me, believe it or not, through my consulting business. They have a net worth maybe around $1 million, and they actually constructed a vault room in their house. They were telling me about it, which I do think is a great idea. Again, there are risks and precautions to that. But for the most part, all of you out there watching this video, whether you collect rare Pokemon cards, rare Magic the Gathering cards, coins, currency like me, collectible first edition books, historical documents, other small artifacts, Rolex watches, jewelry, you should have a safety deposit box. Please understand that, guys. It is well worth the investment. I pretty much covered everything in this video that I wanted to cover. If you have any comments, if you think I need to do a follow-up to this video because I left some information out, let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. And if you are not subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing if my content interests you. Thanks, guys.